Creativity is an addiction. Unplugged because we will always say yes to creativity. Totally Uncut because we all make mistakes. So turn it into a tool. This is Arroe Unplugged.
Hey, it's Arroe, and this is Defrag. We're about ready to take the traditional transition walk through this beautiful forest in South Charlotte, North Carolina. Like 58 degrees, beautiful sunshine. There's new leaves popping for the season of spring. But I'll tell you what the subject that we're going to cover today is pretty heavy, okay? And you might ask right away, what is Defrag and why am I not on that walk right now? Because there's so much information that I have been researching today that it's like, I've got to have this information in front of me right now before I hit that path. And that's why you're going to hear Ernie in the background. You're going to hear echoing in this room because, once again, the subject that we're going to be doing today, defragging, is asking the questions and then questioning the answers. It's getting to know you. And as you grow with your inner core, it does pour out of your heart and affect other people around you. So it's learning how to trust, to find faith in your own God-given ability, and to really see things through the inner eye and not what your outside eye would rather have. This is Defrag. So the subject before we hit the path, and we're going to hit the path today. This hit me really hard while I was daily writing. Do you hate yourself? What? Okay, before we even jump into any of this, I got to tell you that I had to go to the book. And the book says, Proverbs 6:16 through 19, there were things that God hated. 7. He hated haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked schemes, feet that are quick to rush into evil, a false witness who pours out lies, and a person who stirs up conflict in the community. So God knows what hatred is. And if bringing up God has created a hatred, okay, we'll change it. We'll say the universe. We'll say something that isn't so offensive to you because it's a 50-50 shot these days when you bring up that G-O-D. Hey, how about this? They always say that, the dog was created because you spell God backwards and it's dog. Would that help bring peace? Okay, so that's our subject today, and we're going to get on that walk here in just a couple of minutes, a transition walk, and we're going to dive into the subject. And it's not one that I really want to tackle, but then, guess what? While writing, I said that. I don't think this is my subject. Do you hate yourself? And then the question came up in the writing. Are you denying God? That's a big question. All right, I'm going to see you out on the path. All right, out on the path. The first step of a brand new beginning, it's got to be something, because why would I pick such a subject? Wait a second, I didn't pick it. No, I'm going to plead that. I didn't pick it. Now, one of the things that, like I said, it was dropped into my heart. Do you hate yourself? And sometimes you have to figure out, okay, that's a pretty big word. Can we figure out how to define that word? Because it being so big and it appearing in the Bible, there's got to be one hell of a definition. Not really. Helicopters going above us here. Maybe they're looking for me. Maybe the word's gotten out that he's going to talk about the H word. So the definition of hate is very simple. Hate is an emotion. Dislike is a feeling. Now, personally, on Defrag, because we're questioning ourselves and then we're questioning the answers. I've got 29 years of daily writing, and I'm sure in the daily writing, I have used the word hate. But did I mean it as hate, or did I mean it as dislike? I would have to go back and try to get back into that moment where things are kind of equal on everybody's grounds. What was the emotion that he was trying to do versus what was he really trying to say? The emotion, the feeling. And I kept saying, wait a second, this is not my subject. I shouldn't be writing about this because I fear things like this because I don't want it to affect the rest of my day. I really do fear, and my anxiety level goes up when I see, feel, or hear anything when it comes to hate. So I said, I'm not a professional. I'm not Oprah Winfrey. I'm not Dr. Dave. That was my psychologist back in the early part of the 1990s. And all of a sudden it says, are you denying God? No, I'm not. If you could see the sheet of paper that I'm carrying with me while in this beautiful forest in South Charlotte, North Carolina, the wind is lightly blowing, the sun is out, and the subject I'm talking about is dark. The goal on Defrag, as we ask the questions and question the answers, is let's try to figure out if there's light in this so that we can have a better understanding of how we're traveling in our everyday. One of the questions that came up, how would your mother act if you would have told her that you hated yourself as a teen, as a preschooler, or even the times when you went through the abortions? Did you hate yourself during those times? And the answer was no, I did not. I questioned the situations. I disliked the decisions. I was not happy about what was going on in my marriage. But I always kept this kind of stuff away from my mother. And the reason why is because I never talked to my mother about subjects like this, not even dislike. And I don't know if it's because she gave off that sense of energy that no matter what you dislike in life, move beyond it. Find the light. That was my mother all the time. And she would always talk about her love for Jesus Christ, and she would always bring up Jesus' name when things seemed to be a little rough. So I never had that opportunity to ask my mother, or to even share my mother, my dislike or hatred. And I hate using that word. Now see, but is that an emotion or is it a feeling? Well, my feeling is I don't like using such a word. But this sheet of paper I'm carrying, if anybody were to find it and take note of the handwriting on it, they're going to sit me down and they're going to question me. And the reason why is because the questions that I have on this are blatantly honest. And so on Defrag, I'm asking you to ask the same questions, to see if you can get into that inner core of your belief and see what is going on. I mean, I have been very disappointed with a lot of my decisions. But did I hate my decisions? I don't think I used that word hate at all. I just was bothered, deeply bothered. And like I said, I've got 29 years of writing to back that claim up. While out here on this transition walk, when my dog catches wind of another dog, do I hate it? Or do I just dislike the moment because I know my dog, a pointer, is so effing strong that she's going to pull my arm off one day? Which is pretty interesting because the man who did the surgery on my wife's hip, he actually told my wife that he has more arm injuries than anything else because of dogs on leashes, because of the way that they hit the leash and the human being is dragged right along. Do I hate it or do I dislike it? I hand that question to you. I want you to ask that question. Those little things such as taking your dog for a walk or a lawnmower in the background, or maybe it's too hot too early. Your allergies and hay fever are driving you totally crazy. Do you hate it or do you dislike it? I'll give you another great example. I have a screaming blue-crowned conure, one of the loudest birds on the planet, inside a house. And when it screams, oh my God, it's the end of the world. And so what happens is that do you dislike the screaming or do you hate the screaming? You see, learning to define your emotion without using such a harsh word is going to help you walk a stronger path of understanding. There was somebody that I met at the Essential Job yesterday that for Lent, they wanted to stop cussing because their family doesn't like it. And the word she used was, my family hates it when I cuss. And so I think that might have been the seed planter right there. I said, is it really hate they don't like it? Or do they just dislike what's going on? And so she's had to revert during Lent to go to words like flabbergasted. What? And when there are people that are upsetting her, she calls them hooligans. And so she reverts back to severe old school types of language. Now, in all honesty, that's a lighter case of the H word being used. In October of 2022, in an email sent to me from my sister, she sharply put into words her hatred toward me, mainly because I didn't support her negative energy toward others and herself. And because I didn't become a part of Team Susan, she disconnected from me 100%. We've talked about this on other episodes of Defrag. And the thing is that she did use the word hate. And she meant it. And she said that she would never talk to me again and that I would be faded out of her life. neither one of us realized that in 4 months that her life would be over. And so I carry that message with me that she put into that smartphone. And that might have been a seed about what's going on here as well. You know, it's one of those things that you hold on to, but you've got to forgive. And when you forgive, that means you got to not necessarily forget, but just move on. You ask anybody at my essential job, and they'll tell you, oh yeah, he seems to be a really positive word. I don't really hear anything negative coming out of him. I would be shocked if he even used that H word. And I have to ask this question only because we are diving in. We are asking the questions and questioning the answers. Is my positive mask actually a disguise for disliking or hating something? I mean, I hate it when I don't feel well. I was sick last week. But did I really hate it? Or did I dislike the feeling? See, making yourself available to understand the difference between the two helps clear up the mind, body, and soul in ways that allows you to say, look, I don't want to use that word anymore. I'm treating myself like a hooligan. I'm flabbergasted. But there are times in your own personal life where you've got to be able to not only look at yourself in the mirror, but when you're sitting in the front seat of your car, in the cubicle at work, or when you're alone in the living room, you're about ready to munch into a gigantic piece of chicken, the 5th piece today, and you have to ask the question, am I facing inner pain? Is there something inside of me that is creating dislike and or hatred? And if there is, let's identify it. And how do you do that? You ask the questions and you question the answers. And the words that you come up with, it's okay to not always agree with them. Making yourself available to you is what defragging is all about. It ain't no scientific name. I didn't find it in some sort of book. It just came to me one day, because don't we defrag our computers all the time? When we get rid of the cache in our smartphone, aren't we really just kind of just defragging everything? Why aren't we doing it to ourselves? Why aren't we cleaning out all of that content and all of that information that is moving through us? So when thoughts like this do come to you, do you hate yourself? Don't shove it to the side. Ask the questions. Do you? Once again, I'm sure there's many times in my daily writing of 29 years that I brought up that H word because I disliked something so badly, but I was so misinformed by the actions and reactions of what was going on in my reality that it just felt a lot easier to use the H word. It was that crutch, that go-to, that place where I was like, okay, now that I've identified it, we're going to let it go as such. But it doesn't go. It takes root, and it festers, and it gets into other thoughts inside your mind. And you're sitting at work or you're in the car, and you're trying to be happy, but that H word is breathing all over you. How do you deal with that? I read a book today because I'm going to be with the author Monday. And the book talks about when things aren't going right, go left. Go left. And so you can hear the conversation. It's going to be up on iHeartRadio and Spotify. But it's something to think about. And that could have been the seed planter about this, because it deals with anxiety. It deals with frustrations. It deals with things that make you angry. Have you dealt with that? And how do you deal with that? Once again, I do not know how my mother would have reacted if I would have said such a thing. But I do know how my father reacted when he came into my bedroom on the morning that my first wife had an abortion. And he sat on the bed with me. I know that I didn't use the word hate, nor did he. But what he provided was love. So I want to use that as a metaphor. When you are laying in bed and you feel like crying, or you are crying, when your head is under the pillow, or your body is under the weight of constant nagging stress, sit next to yourself and ask the questions and question the answers. This is Deep Rag.